Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I really wanted to make a video today that talks about triple screen setup in Flight Simulator. As you guys know, I already have a triple screen setup that I have tuned in pretty well. Every so often I get these questions about how do I set it up, what angles should I put it in, and all of that depends on many factors. So I'm going to go through a little bit of an explanation today, and hopefully this is additive on top of what Microsoft Flight Simulator already provides us. Let's cover some topics. Please remember, these are my opinions. And the settings that I'm going to share work for my setup, but there are so many factors like the size of your screens, the rotation, the angles that are different for you that might give you different outcomes. So don't take this as a Bible. This is just trying to help you out, and I really hope that it does. If it does, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. All right, here we go. Okay, so we're going to start in this view. I think this is really important for you guys to understand this. I'm lucky enough to have three 55-inch screens. This room is exactly 7.5 feet across, which means I cannot have these side screens angled out any more than this because they are literally touching the walls of my room with 1 or 2 inches to spare. So, on one hand, that's bad because I don't get a lot of option. On the other hand, this is perfect because my idea of triple screens is trying to reproduce an encompassing view, almost like VR. As to say, some of you, and I'm not saying you're doing this wrong, but I've seen it in some videos, will have 3 screens, main one in the center, and the other one's positioned much like as you see here in this depiction. So what happens is a couple things. Some of you guys don't have enough space, and that's fine. So what you do is you use a desk, and you put 3 screens across it, and you try to bend them around you. And come to find out, well, they're going to fall off the desk, and so you end up just putting them in a row. I say that because I've read a comment, on my channel that talked about how come I get to see my engines in the front side screens. That's crazy. And so we'll talk a little bit about that because you have to properly set up your screens to see what you would see in real life. So let's get back to this. So my screens in this room sit at exactly 72 degrees from 0. 0 being in line with the main screen, turned 72 degrees. This is super important when setting up a triple screen setup, but not in Flight Simulator, and I'm sorry to tell you that. So love the guys at Microsoft. They're doing a great job for us, but this is not how you do triple screens because as you'll see, the measurements in Flight Simulators do not correlate to real life, and I'll explain to you why. So now that we covered this, let's get into a normal view and try to show you the rest of the setup. So we'll talk about positioning not only in plan view as you see it here, but also directly straight ahead because that's crucial. That is where all the settings will matter, is what do you see looking forward and looking to the side, and how does that relate to real life? So let's cover that. Alright guys, here we are. Now this is the crucial view. This is where all the settings and your adjustments should be made from so that they result in a really good picture all the way around. So as you can see, I'm filming with my GoPro, not in a warped view, so just more to simulate what a human eye would see. One of the most important things I can tell you right now is your position relative to the center of the screen should be dead on. So they specify this for any triple screen setup, and I'll explain to you in a moment why. Your eye level, the position of your pupil should be dead center with the center height of this screen, and that has to do with perspective, the way the screen is rendered side to side, and the way you understand perspective in reality. Because what happens is the computer can only simulate one perspective view, and that's one stable view, your eye point right here. And it draws all the lines to express to you that that's how you should see perspective in real life. It does not adjust with you. If you're too high, it doesn't know that, so it cannot adjust for that height difference. If you move your head up and down as you fly, it cannot do that either. I'm sure there's a way to do it, but it's just way too complicated. So the game assumes that your eye point, and I can't express this enough, that your eye point is straight center to the screen. So now that we have that settled, let's talk about this. If it's not, I'm going to put up this image right here. As you can see, this is what happens. If you go a little bit too high, you can see the side screens seem to droop. It's almost like the grass line, it doesn't align anymore. As you go higher, they do the same thing. So there's that sweet spot. The sweet spot, again, to repeat myself, is dead center of screen. So once you have that settled, now all we have to worry about is these angles. What should this angle be, and what should this angle be? So let's talk a little bit about that. When I look out the side, I pretty much understand that that's how I should see the world. It makes sense to me, and I'll explain a little more, but in general, this just feels right. So what do I look for? Well, I look for alignment up in the corner. I see my trim of my door and the canopy aligning, and I go down here, and this is always a crucial one, and I see my gauge not doubling itself up, not missing a portion of it. I see 15, 20, 25, and 30, and I know you guys can see that too. I'll take a moment to say these Asus bezels have a tendency to stretch images, and that's why, as you can see, something's not aligning. That is not having to do with my misalignment. The images are clearly being stretched to get rid of my bezel. I have a video for that, link above. So that I cannot never fight. So we have to look past that. But now that we have it set up, let me show you what my settings are. Let me explain to you how I got here. So let's hit the general options, down to experimental, and this is where you will see, if you are just starting this right now, you will see nothing here. So I will delete this for you, and now that I've done so, well, you can see my desktop and you can see my silly recording audio and all that. But what you will do is you'll add a new render window, and usually it will pop up on the left or the right. It doesn't, I can't really tell you right now which side it will pop on, but it doesn't matter. So there's one, and add the other one, and there it is. I have arrived at these numbers, 88.6 and minus 88.6. This is where you'll make a big mistake like I did. For months I sat here and struggled, and I said, this is not correct, because I measured that screen in relation to that screen, and it's exactly 72 degrees, and so is that. So how come this is 88.6? And it finally dawned on me, that is why I'm making this video. All of these alignments and all of these numbers are in relation to your eye point. So imagine your head is the pivot and rotating. My screen is positioned almost 88.6 degrees from a true 90 rotating to 0. 0, 88.6 degrees, 90, 88.6, 90. It took me months to realize that. These windows rotate around a pivot in the center of this room, which is me. Very not intuitive. It's not even a way to express it. I've never seen that before, but it's still doable. So thank you guys at Microsoft. Thank you for doing it this way, for giving us something, but this is not the way triple screens are done, not in racing games. So as long as you understand that, that number does not have anything to do with the relation to the front screen. It just has to do with the relation of your head. So now that you know that, you will understand that changing this number, and I'll explain to you what happens. When I change this to, say, 60.6, all of a sudden, we've reduced that arc, and now you can see my image is doubled. I can see my radio stack, and I can see my radio stack down here also. So now that you see that, try to play with this, and you'll understand how all of this image is literally being projected on an angle that you tell it from your eye point. I think I've said that 7 times already, so I should stop. And be very careful. These numbers are super finicky. You saw me type 88.6 and it came out 886, and it'll just get really wacky on you. So be careful, check the number, hit enter. Once you hit enter, we're back to normal. The other thing that I want to talk about, it's no use to me whatsoever. Not a lot of use for any of us. Side note, I saw a guy that his side screens were completely twisted. I don't know why he put them like that, to where that bottom of the screen was literally here. The whole screen was twisted 45 degrees. Both sides were doing the same thing. For that guy, vertical rotation and rotational roll is perfect. So I'll show you what happens when we do this. Check this out. This rotates on my eye pivot, this being my pivot, and it's just rotating around my finger like this. What the purpose of this is, why you would have screens positioned like this, I don't know. I'm assuming that when you fly big jetliners like a Boeing or what have you, there's multiple screens. So one day with a powerful enough GPU, you can have 7 windows, and some of them might be crooked like this. Again, I don't find the use for it. All right, so the next one is vertical rotation offset, and that is literally, if you can imagine my hand going like this. This is my hand going like this, and that's what happens to the screen. Again, your head is the pivot. What would be the need for this? I don't understand, but perhaps I'm just not that smart. And again, maybe I'm going back to what I said previously. Maybe it's in a jetliner of some sort. The windows are a little higher. You want to put multiple windows up here, and God only knows what. I'm sure it has a use case scenario, otherwise these guys wouldn't have done it. But in a simple triple screen like this, it doesn't make any difference. So, guys, with that said, I mean, I want to keep it simple. This is what it is. The main idea being you are the center of everything. Literally, everything rotates around an imaginary point in space that is you. So the last thing I want to talk about is good performance. I always show you guys my settings, so I'm going to go through it. These 3 screens are all 4K screens, and I love them a lot. But I have a 3080 down there that's screaming right now. So what I found out is that if I run my center screen in 3840 by 2160, I get perfect 4K resolution. Of course, it's helped by DLSS. Of course, it's on performance. So, you know, I'm helping it along, but it truly is 4K. What I did find out is if I try to run these guys on 4K, it will do it, but I'll get 15 to 20 frames per second. As soon as I pop these boys back down to 2560 by 1440, which is a proportional scale of 4K. A 1440 is a scaled down version of 2160. As soon as you do that for side screens, I can't really tell the difference. I mean, if you look close enough, you will be able to, but this is still considered 2K. So highly recommend scaling down your 2 side screens. And you'll get much better performance. If you can look down at the bottom, right now I'm showing 40 frames per second, and that's pretty good. As soon as we get up in the air, I could be up at 50 FPS with a triple 4K screen. So that's it, guys. Lastly, I'm going to go through my settings and just let you soak them in. I always, advise that you just take a pause, take a moment. If you want to copy these settings and do the same, I could go through all of them if you guys desire, but this is what works for me. And again, a lot of these things you'll say, well, why don't you have your aliasing turned up high? Well, because I have 4K screens. There's so many pixels and so much detail. It doesn't necessitate a lot of anti-aliasing. So with that said, guys, I really hope that this helps you and gives you a little more perspective on what's actually happening in this game. And I hope I'm inspiring you to get your own triple screen if you haven't already. This is insane. So with that said, boys and girls, get out there and stay fly. Love you all.